So I want to welcome to the creator stage. You know her. She's the current writer of Harley Quinn. You know her from her work with Wonder Woman. Lots of great DC titles. Please give a massive Philadelphia round of applause to Stephanie Phillips, giggling right over here to my right.
I love you guys.
Have you done any panels since you've been in town?
Yeah, I did one breaking into comics yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How'd it go?
I think really good.
How's this going, by the way?
So far?
So far, so good?
Yeah, so far it's like 8.5 out of 10. No, I'm just kidding. 10
right.
out of 10.
We'll get
10
there.
out of 10.
We will tip the scales before this next 30 minutes is up. We don't have a ton of time. It's going to be about a 30-minute panel, but we will have a microphone right over there. We appreciate and encourage Q&A, so if you want to ask a question to our esteemed guest right here, please just step up to the mic and we'll field that immediately. So you told me that this whole podcast kind of show floor stage is kind of a new thing to you.
Yes.
Are you the slightest bit nervous?
No, it's not so much that. I don't know. I'm not. I think I just haven't done a lot of conventions in the last 2.5 years. So I didn't start writing Harley until the pandemic started. So coming out of the pandemic, well, I mean it's still happening, but getting back to some normal stuff and now writing like Harley and Wonder Woman, it's a very different convention experience in a cool way. So and I mean this is like one of the coolest things to look out and see like 5 Harley Quinns looking at me and all different iterations of Harley, which is I think the coolest thing I've ever seen.
I know, you got to see it from our vantage point. It's great.
It is.
Well, let's do a little kind of quick get to know you. There's no better way to get to know somebody than their Instagram handle. Your heading in Instagram says, I write comics, currently Harley Quinn writer, and I also have a PhD. Would you like to unpack that for us just a little bit?
Unpack why I stayed in school for 9 extra years. I don't know. If my therapist could figure it out, we'd pay extra. But I wanted to be a professor, and I just kind of kept going after undergrad. Got a master's degree, and then finished my PhD while I started working for DC Comics, and then very quickly after resigned from an academic position. So,
wow, just success after success after success that brought you to this stage at this exact moment right here. Staying on the Instagram, not to get too personal, but I saw a awesome Instagram post. I think it was this morning. It was you, Isaac Goddard, and Philip Kennedy Johnson at the Aloft Hotel. I believe you were guys in the gym pumping iron.
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
Yeah, I think there's like a small group of us that all weightlift. So got together the DC Comics weightlifters, I guess that's what we are now. So
the power lifters of DC.
Yeah. We all have like the ridiculous blender bottles that have superheroes on them. So like we are nerds about the gym and nerds about comics. So
that's funny. Yeah, power lifter, weightlifter, Muay Thai fighter, hockey player. Has your Muay Thai skills ever come in handy out there in the real world?
Yes. Well, I thought you meant like on the ice. Like, have I beat people up with a hockey stick? Yes. Like, it's an odd place to have a socially acceptable like moment where you can like karate chop somebody with a stick. But yeah, and also like having short hair and playing men's hockey. I think under the helmet, like people can't tell that like they're pushing a girl around or something, which I don't know if they would if they saw the ponytail. So yeah, I've definitely gotten to like use some Muay Thai on the ice, which is dangerous when you have skates on.
Yeah, Jesus, you ever take off your skates and cut somebody like Happy Gilmore style? No.
Oh God.
Talking DC for just a minute. I know I'm going to be kind of rifling through stuff as quick as I can, but get people up to speed on kind of where you've taken Harley Quinn. Where's Harley right now? Where was she when you first took over the book? Kind of give us a little backstory on what Harley's been up to since you took over.
Yeah, Harley's in Blackgate right now. When we took over, it was kind of wrapping up Joker War. So kind of the end where she had this very redemptive moment with Batman, which I thought was just this really cool moment with Batman, and we wanted to capitalize on it, launching the new series and kind of letting her explore a heroic side and if redemption for her would even be possible in Gotham, which has been a lot of fun to kind of bring in new characters. And currently we just started an arc called The Verdict. It's going to be a 5-issue arc moving into some cool stuff for Harley's 30th, which it's really cool. Remembering seeing her for the first time on the animated series as a kid and being the writer at her 30th both makes me feel very old and like very honored. So
Yay, old.
yeah, millennial babies. So that's really cool, and we're definitely gonna have some announcements coming up for her 30th. So I'm excited about that.
When might those announcements be making their way to?
Like, what are we, like 3 months ahead on solicits? Like, right? So we would be, I would say, we'll probably start announcing some stuff like probably next month. Yeah, we're doing some big stuff, and I've been excited because I've been sitting on it for a long time, and I think we finally get to start talking about it. I think next month.
Okay.
So yeah.
I love talking industry talk with people in the industry. We had Pete Tomasi up here a couple hours ago, just to kind of take a peek behind the curtain a little bit on how things work with comic book writing. How far in advance do you guys plan?
Right.
Well, two-part question. When you first were going to take over the title, how long of a buffer did you have to come up with a full plan for the character, and then how far ahead have you planned for where you're going from here?
I mean, I think it's always different depending on the series, depending on the artists and editors and where the book is slated. I've been put on stuff like Wonder Woman actually was slated like very quickly, and we had to like start moving immediately. Harley we knew was coming like a few months down the line, so Riley and I had started working on Harley. I think we had like a 4-month head start before it was announced, maybe 3 or 4 months. I've written 21 issues. There are 14 out, and we're like, we have more planned. So, I know what the arc is after Verdict, and I think that's the hardest part. Like, I love the Verdict arc that we're in right now. I know it comes next, and I sit here like, really, like, I can't talk about it, and it kills me because I'm the worst secret. Like, never tell me your secrets. It's horrible. Like, I just get too excited.
The microphone's right over there if you want to do any
if you want to just
telling.
reveal your secrets to the world and on camera. Yeah, so it's hard to sit here knowing, like, I know what the next 5 or 6 issues are after that, and then now we're kind of into the next 5 or 6 after that. So yeah, it's really cool knowing where it's all going and seeing the things that we've been seeding, and like having to sit there quietly and like not tell people like, oh, pay attention to this because we're gonna pay that off 6 issues later, and just like learning to shut my mouth. So yeah, but it's a cool thing to get to do that and have that runway so that we can build up stuff that we started in arc 1 and still be playing with those things in like issue 15, which is, I think, really cool. So.
How tight-knit are the creators at DC? Like, in my mind, I see you and the rest of the amazing writers at DC all sitting together, having coffee, hanging out on the weekends, going to the gym, pumping iron. Is it a tight-knit group? Do you get to do a lot of collaboration with other writers that you're not necessarily working with on a title?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes, like especially Gotham, we're like really close. We Zoom. Like Tom Taylor's in Australia, so it's not always a like let's go have breakfast. I wish I could go to Australia for breakfast, but yeah, we talk a lot. So Gotham, I feel like, is a collaboration, even though we all have kind of our own little corners of Gotham. We're all talking to each other. I get on the phone with Teeny, who's writing Catwoman. Her work has been amazing. If you haven't checked out Catwoman, it's so cool. And I love talking with Teeny because we're kind of doing a little bit of a cross thing right now. Harley is appearing in Catwoman. So it was really fun to kind of plan that out with her and just like make sure everybody's on the same page and build the city as a unit, which is a lot of fun. Yeah,
Teeny had some big shoes to fill, taking over for Joelle Jones and her amazing kind of relaunch of the title. Was there any sort of, were you nervous taking over such a popular character as Harley Quinn? It was your inaugural time out with DC, right? So what kind of pressures and stresses and sort of expectations were you nervous about living up to?
Like filling Jimmy and Amanda's shoes it's impossible. So really all I can do is be me and do like my iteration and my version of Harley. And bring something to the character that past creators haven't. And for me, I think somebody mentioned today, like, I talk a lot about Harley having a PhD. After all of that time in grad school, it's like, yeah, there's something about hitting people with a bat after 9 years of grad school that like totally makes sense to me, in a way that I think unless you've done it, it's just like such a weird experience. And it's something that I love getting to add to Harley's kind of mythos. And we have some stuff coming up where she talks about her dissertation and that process. And somebody noticed it online, like all of her clinical hours when she talks about that. Like I've called up a friend of mine who's a professor of psychology and kind of been like, all right, you tell me your background, because he does personality assessment. So I was able to build a lot of that into the character. And I think there's been stuff like, is she psychology or is she psychiatry? And that's never been, like, it goes back and forth, and that's not realistic to me. And I wanted to really set that straight. And I told DC, I was like, she's a psychologist, Hugo is a psychiatrist. And to kind of set that straight, that's why Hugo is such a big factor in the first arc, was to be like, here's psychiatry, which I guess you now know my view on psychiatry versus psychology, because Hugo gets his butt kicked. But that was something that I was really glad they were amenable to, was like letting me bring that in. And being really good friends with Jimmy and Amanda, it's like super cool because I had to sit on that for a bit, and then I got to call them immediately, and it's like getting their blessing on the character in a way, and that was super cool. So, yeah.
I want to talk to you a little bit. I mean, a lot of our audience knows you from your work at DC, but I want to ask you about some of the work you do over at like Dark Horse.
Yeah.
You got some very different titles over at Dark Horse than you do at DC. Like we Only Kill Each Other, right. Butcher Paris. What can you tell our audience a little bit about those books and how they kind of differ? And
yeah. I do a lot of historical fiction outside of Harley. Thank you. Yeah, I like World War II history. I've got books about Jewish gangsters in New York City in 1938 taking on the American Nazi movement. That comes out April 20th. It'll be in stores April 20th. Peter Krause drew it. It's amazing. Artwork is gorgeous. Called We Only Kill Each Other. Butcher at Paris from Dark Horse, about a serial killer in World War II. Yay, thank you. I really want to start bringing some of that into superheroes too. I'm working on a new project that I can't say much about. It hasn't been announced. I don't know when it'll be announced, but I feel like it's finally this blend of like superheroes that I love and historical fiction. It's like kind of a dream project in that way. It's a superhero I've never gotten to write that I absolutely adore, and I get to do that real historical fiction setting that I like really want to do, and add in like supernatural elements and have something that I feel like is like the two halves of my creative life like marrying each other, and I'm just really excited about that. So hopefully we'll get to announce it soon.
Well, kind of in the historical fiction kind of realm, I mean, are there certain writers that you kind of pull inspiration from? People like maybe, I don't know, Ed Brubaker. We're in Philadelphia, so maybe like Philadelphia. I don't know if you've read Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Love that book. That's historical fiction, right? I mean, vampires and vampire presidents, no spoilers.
That actually happened.
It does, and it's currently going on.
Yeah. Garth Ennis, Brian Azzarello, there are some people that I think have utilized those things really well. Not comic book Eric Larson, but he does not historical fiction, but just straight history, even though it reads like fiction. And I love his work. If you get a chance to check it out, or if you're looking for like another good book, Eric Larson is a really great writer, and I try to learn a lot from him to bring into comics, because he has a cool thing about like finding slice of life in the middle of big historical events, which I think is important, because just reading a textbook about World War II doesn't actually, I think, get you to connect with the event as much as like learning about, he wrote a book about the ambassador to Germany during Hitler's rise to power, and it was just really incredible, like something I never thought about. Like he has diary entries from the ambassador's daughter, like chronicling like her love life as Hitler is rising to power, and it's just like such an interesting concept. So something I try to bring into comics, like thinking about small events in the midst of something much larger and how those impact people on a very personal level.
Yeah, that's funny, because when Pete Tomasi was just up here, he said one of his biggest pieces of advice for upcoming writers was read things that aren't comics. You know, read the newspaper, read
Right.
read novels and stuff, and now it's all coming kind of full circle. I want to make sure we save time for this photo op. I really, really do. So I'm kind of rapid firing through
That's
stuff.
fine.
But tell us about Stephanie Phillips, the child. What kind of stuff did you?
Is this therapy?
Were you okay? Now, would you like to lay down? Can I get you a pillow? Were you always a writer? I mean, did you write as
Yeah.
a kid?
Yes, I made comic books as a kid and stapled them together and tried to sell them to my neighbors.
That's adorable.
Which my mom did not like me trying to like solicit things, and I was like, "But I put the work in, Mom. Like it's only a quarter, God."
I sent a copy to Dan DiDio every single week.
Yeah, I would draw, and I think it was even before I could write, so my dad would fill in the balloons for me. And I had a series about a nun and a werewolf, which is odd because I'm Jewish and I don't know where I ever saw a nun. Like, I honestly, to this day, like, I've been in historical churches, but I've never been to church. I don't know where the nun came from, but it was about a nun and a werewolf who became best friends. So,
Sally Field, the flying nun, maybe.
Really?
Maybe he's
I-
caught it on Nick at Night.
No
one night.
idea. Really bridged the worlds there. The werewolf and the nun were like initially adversaries, and then they became best friends. So
Well,
it's really heartwarming.
One more kind of industry question, because this always kind of fascinates me, and I want to get your take on it. What was your experience breaking into comics? I mean, how important is it to know somebody who's in there, or is it just mailing your stuff until somebody calls you back? What was your experience?
I mean, the weird thing is any creator you ask this is always going to have a different answer, which is why this is so hard to talk about or pin down. And the other thing is, like, I don't really know what, like, quote unquote breaking in means. Like, I don't know if I'm even in. Like,
you kidding me?
We're out.
Look at this audience.
Yeah. What did I do? I guess I just didn't wait for somebody to give me permission. I just made a comic, and that's a really privileged thing to say because I saved a lot of money to do it. I worked 2 jobs, and one of the jobs I put away a lot of the money and waited until I could hire the exact artist I wanted, and then we took the book to Black Mask. We started kind of pitching it around. It ended up at Black Mask. And I didn't know if that would lead to anything. I didn't know if it would just be like, this is the only thing I've ever published. After that, Aftershock kind of came calling, and we started a really nice relationship. I'm still working with Aftershock to this day. Really loyal, because, I think they're one of the companies that gave me, like, my first real chance in comics, letting me, like, pitch a lot of stuff to them and learn from their editors there. So, yeah, I mean, it's easy for me to just be like, well, don't wait, just go make a comic, and I know that costs money, and I wish I had, like, a better answer for those kinds of things. Our industry doesn't have a great way yet, I think, of, like, allowing brand new voices, especially writers. It's something that I hope can change. I'm working on some, like, internship programs and things like that, trying to change that a little bit and, like, push that back and say, like, you don't have to just go spend, like, a ton of money in hopes of one day, 10 years down the road, working for DC. So, we'll see. I don't know that I have a great answer for that.
Okay.
So.
Well, no, it's funny because that's a really similar answer. We were talking to Mark Wade's side story a couple weeks ago, and that was his advice as well. Was we live in an age where you can make a comic, you can make a web comic, you can upload a comic for, like, next to nothing to the internet, and that's a good way to kind of break in. Do it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Almost. Well, I want to definitely save some time for this photo op, but really quickly, we have Mr. Mike Hawthorne coming up to the stage a little bit later on today. He's actually our last panel of the day. I wanted to ask you about your experience. I mean, Harley is iconic, but Wonder Woman, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your experience working with Mike, your
Yeah.
experience with Wonder Woman as a whole. You want to talk about nerves and carrying a pretty heavy baton.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience working with Wonder Woman.
I mean, it's been great. Like, you're talking about 2 of the big books I've done at DC, Wonder Woman and Harley, and Riley and Mike I think now are, like, 2 of my best friends, and I think that's the best part about making those comics is, like, I get to make comics with 2 of the coolest people on the planet, and just jam on ideas, and a lot of that story has been built with Mike. Like, I had some ideas in place, and then Mike came on, and there are things that he, like, seeds on the pages that he's like, I hope you don't mind. And I'm like, oh my God, no, that's brilliant. Like, you are such a smart storyteller, and I'm excited for those little things because they excite me when I see them in the page. So that's been a really fun one to work on. And of course, I love Diana. I like writing fight sequences with Diana. and the fight sequences with her are so different from Harley. Like Harley will like find a feather boa and like choke somebody out because she's just creative and intelligent and uses her surroundings. Diana is a warrior. Like she has been trained since she was like this big to kick somebody's ass, and it's like the fight style is so different. So when I get to write the Harley Wonder Woman fight sequence, like before I leave this book, I think that's the thing I'm gonna have to do is like find a way, like just for fun, not because they hate each other, but just like I want to know what it would look like. So I think that would be fun.
Well, everybody, huge round of applause. We've rifled through that. I know it's like probably the shortest panel of all time, but I'm so glad you were able to take some time, sit us up here with us. Harley's a symbol. What's that?
Do you want them up here?
Yeah, guys, why don't you? We got stairs right over here. Friends of Harley's, give them your cell phones.